A Fox 5 I-Team investigation has found the South Fulton Jail Annex has had surveillance camera problems for years, a problem that left a gap in jailhouse security.
Well, senior I-Team reporter Dale Russell discovered the issue after the sheriff's office caught a man actually throwing drugs over a jail fence.
Yeah, and the really interesting thing to us was how they caught him. Jail officials tell me the surveillance cameras haven't worked properly for years, and the problem is the cameras wouldn't record. Well, it all came to a head after a case in which jailers learned some inmates knew all about the security gap. Keeping inmates in,
men on deck,
and contraband out is a full-time job at any jail.
And on the pan-tilt zoom cameras, you can get in as close as you need to get in. All right, ladies, as you were.
But still, someone, somewhere, is always trying to beat the system. Is this about the dumbest criminal activity you've ever seen?
It's not only the dumbest, but it lends itself to almost like a training exercise for my staff.
On January 27th, Chandra Johnson got in a line like this one, picked up a jailhouse phone, and heard this message.
This call is subject to recording and monitoring, and your location information may be collected and used by corrections and law enforcement personnel.
But Jail Commander Colonel Mark Adger says that clear-cut warning didn't stop her.
I think what they count on is that we're too busy to listen to all the phone calls.
Chandra Johnson called her friend Jerome Coggins, told him what to buy, and then directed him exactly where to go to throw it over this barbed wire fence. It wasn't your typical home delivery. Crack cocaine, peach schnapps, cigarettes, and a red lighter.
Oddly enough, the tobacco was probably worth more than the cocaine was, because this is a no-smoking environment, and a lot of these folk are really anxious to get a hold of a good cigarette.
But this is what caught the Fox 5 I-Team's attention. During the call, Chandra Johnson made it clear she knew the security cameras couldn't record any video. She felt no one would have any evidence of the illegal drop. The call was played in court recently when Jerome Coggins pleaded guilty to giving drugs and alcohol to an inmate.
You sure they can't make it on work?
No, I don't count on work now.
And if you can't record it, then you can't use it as evidence.
It's actually useless for evidence, and it's not very good for surveillance.
The South Fulton County Jail Annex is leased from the Union City Jail Authority to hold female inmates. It has old analog cameras that haven't recorded for years, and the inmates know it. How did she know that there was a problem with the cameras?
I think this is an example of that was the case, of loose lips sinking ships.
But as Jerome Coggins was tossing the drugs and alcohol over the fence, alert staff was listening inside and waiting outside. They arrested Coggins in the act. That too was caught on tape.
Oh my gosh, baby, no.
Though there was no video evidence, the phone call convinced Jerome Coggins to plead guilty to giving drugs and alcohol to an inmate.
What I'm charged with right now, I'm really ashamed and embarrassed.
And knowing that someone has that eye in the sky ability to keep tabs on you when you enter into a housing zone is very important.
Colonel Adger says after the Coggins case, the jail owners installed new digital cameras that record anyone in and around the jail that could cause a problem. Glad to have these.
I'm happy to have them.
Oddly enough, Colonel Adger says the South Jail Annex now has better cameras than his main jail. Those cameras he would dearly love to upgrade for the safety of his staff and the quality of potential evidence.
What I'm lacking is the clarity of the image,
which is critical if you get into a court of law.
Exactly, for evidentiary purposes and for being able to identify who your players are.
Now, the South Fulton Jail Annex staff is still training in how to use these new digital cameras that they've got in place. That'll also include the ability now to record any of the suspicious incidents they happen to see. And Colonel Adger is hoping to add those similar cameras to the main jail. Russ, Sine?
Yeah, it would seem reasonable to do that, and the technology gets cheaper all the time, doesn't it?
It does, but as you know, especially when you're talking about jails, it's always going to come down to money, right, and how much the commission will be willing to appropriate for these kind of things. I can't think of too many things that are a lot more important in a jail than to have good security cameras.
Yeah, I can't argue with that at all. Thanks so much, Dale.
Thanks, Dale.